Hello, everyone, and welcome to Norm, the Cheers podcast that isn't. I'm usually a little more fired up, but this week's double episode took a lot out of me. I don't know how you guys are feeling. I am all over the place emotionally after 21 and 22 of season two. I'll be seeing you. It was, whew, wow. It was, okay, so initial thoughts, and I hope you both had a lovely week. We are recording this in the midst of Hurricane Henri, which seems like a good time to record a Cheers podcast. I'm very excited for when Henri makes his appearance in, I think, season six, season seven, somewhere around there.
Right in
But
there, yeah.
very much looking forward to that. Uh, I went into this, I was not looking forward to the season finale because I just specifically remembered like uncomfortable moments that I felt like would age poorly. And there are uncomfortable moments. I was really, really blown away by how well done these episodes were overall. I was going to call it this episode as one block, that two-parter. Um, there's awkward stuff, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to delve into it. But I left this just being enormously impressed by Shelley Long and Ted Danson, and leaving it feeling like I completely understand why Ted Danson has been the preeminent sitcom star of the last 40 years. Just hugely impressed by the depths they plumb in their relationship. There are still funny moments, and there are moments that really broke my heart, and moments that made me view these characters differently than I had in the full two seasons leading up to this hour. It was really something, and I enjoyed this in a non-fun way, if that makes sense. It was kind of like listening to a sad song or seeing a scary movie, which I think is interesting because I also think it explains their relationship in the show very well, which is it's not necessarily making you happy, but it's making you feel things strongly. And sometimes that just takes the place of real happiness enough because you want to feel something intense enough that you're willing to be sad during parts of it. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but that was what I left the season finale feeling. What were your thoughts?
I think you're putting it really, really well. I don't know. One of the things that I felt watching these two episodes was, I feel like we've all seen the wacky artist trope of like, the sort of eccentric painter, the eccentric bohemian character. And I was really expecting that energy from Christopher Lloyd. And instead, I felt like he kind of, and to his credit, kind of actually dragged these episodes into like the sort of like late 70s cinema, like emotional realism kind of place where it was really dark and affecting and interesting. And I thought it was really, really fascinating how they sort of used that trope almost like kind of against itself in some ways, that, it wasn't this wasn't Christopher Lloyd's sort of chance to be wacky. It was actually he was playing the sort of darkness of that character, which actually let us access the sort of like darkest parts of Sam and Diane at this point. And yeah, it's not a fun watch by any stretch, but it's a really revealing one, and one that I agree. Like I came out feeling like like this is the sort of dark end of arcs for Sam and Diane that had been set up pretty quietly but consistently throughout. Like Sam's competitiveness, Sam's response to feeling cornered is a very childish and immature one. Diane's inability to sort of relinquish control over situations is explored a little bit, and those are all things that we've seen kind of played throughout. And it was allowed to blossom in this episode, and it was allowed to blossom kind of in the face of this character who was sort of brought in this sort of like very sort of 70s cinema way to like kind of like open things up as opposed to sort of be the punchline. I found it really, really interesting. and really, really compelling. But yeah, I don't want to watch it again for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't
no,
have
I agree.
I didn't have fun watching this one, but it's not to say that I didn't enjoy watching this one and that I wasn't compelled. It was a compelling watch, but I needed to sit with thoughts for a while after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there were a lot of moments.
It's true. It was, and yet I did watch all the way through the second time, and I was just as impressed the second time, and felt more things the second time. Um, just and we're gonna get down into the breakdown, but I also think this finale kind of defies our normal routine for how we break down these episodes, because there were so many uncomfortable moments as I was watching it. The thing that was sitting in my head, and it felt like, all right, I know we got to get to this at some point. We're going to get to this, was the slap fight between Sam and Diane, and it was going to be uncomfortable. I had completely forgotten that early in the beginning of the finale, Diane takes a phone cord and actually tries to strangle Sam. I forgot that Diane initiated the slapping between the two of them. And none of this is to say that Sam was somehow justified in any way being physical with her, but the fact that I remembered him doing that and being so not okay with that made me forget what Diane had done in this episode, and I was really kind of taken aback and surprised by it. I needed to watch it a second time to get over the surprise and just understand the dynamic again. It's these people, and in this episode more than any other, made me understand why they were together and why they needed to break up. I understood why they were together in that they were addicted to the strength of the emotions they bring out in each other, even though they're bad. She was with Sumner, who was this very staid person who treated her as a polite version of how she treats Sam in this relationship. She is the delightful child. He is the teacher. She is the one that has to look up to him. And now she has that relationship with one of the only men that is in her life that she is attracted to, but can also have that relationship with. And she abuses it in that way. I did not realize how cruel she was to him. I want to keep emphasizing, none of this makes it okay when he is cruel to her. None of that is okay. I forgot her treatment of him, which at times is really, really bad. I remembered how bad his was. I did not remember how bad Diane's treatment of Sam was. And I just needed to watch it again on those terms to understand where they were coming from. And by the same token, Sam is always with these beautiful women who don't evoke any kind of emotional response. And even though a lot of the emotional response that she brings out of him is bad, he's feeling strong things that I don't think he's ever felt with a woman before. And as much as he doesn't feel good about it, he can't let that go because he's afraid he's not going to get that back again. And I didn't get that until this episode. I didn't understand that was what was going on.
Yeah, I think one of the most fascinating moments in that vein is the moment after they finish the physical fight, after the slapping and then the nose pinching, and they sort of break, and Sam backs away and then sort of invites Diane into an embrace, or sort of say like, all right, we've moved past this and now it's time to like make up. And the implication being like, this is a cycle that they are in. And this is stuff that they've done before. And it's a really kind of arresting moment of television, watching Diane choose to break that cycle in that moment. And I don't know. I really felt like this one thing these episodes did a really good job of was painting the picture of a couple who are in absolute misery with each other, but as you say, are absolutely kind of inextricably bound together until one of them makes the decision to sever it. But but it's really pervasively unhappy. That's why that's the thing. I don't want to watch this episode again because these two characters, that the focus of these episodes, are so sad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love them both, and I don't like seeing them this sad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like seeing them hurt each other.
I'm still processing it all, and it's like, have you ever been embarrassed for a TV character?
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, these are fictional people, and yet I'm embarrassed for them. If that makes sense. Because that moment was,
it makes a lot of sense because they're in this public place where everyone, these aren't fights, even though the last scene is just between the two of them. So much of what has played out between the two of them is in front of everybody. And yeah, you're embarrassed for them because everybody sees it.
Yeah. But also, it's just wild to think about how this whole time it was Diane who's the bad guy. She was the villain this whole season.
In a way, yeah. Not to excuse Sam's behavior, but
oh no.
Yeah. In a real way, Diane is. Like what she initiates, the way she treats him in so many different ways. And it starts with, so really quickly, the A story is Sam and Diane, and the B story is Coach's Picnic, which is also sad but funny. I don't know. Should we do the traditional breakdown and find out what was going on, and then we'll do the cold opens and we'll do the quick breakdown, and then we'll delve into this more because we're going to need to spend a lot of time on that last scene between Sam and Diane. So, Dave, what was going on when I'll be seeing you broke our collective hearts the first time?
Well, we're a couple weeks away. I sort of saw two pop culture overlaps right around this time. These episodes aired on May 3rd and 10th, 1984, respectively, which is also kind of interesting. I was unfamiliar with seasons of TV airing the first sort of 20 episodes over the winter and spring, and then basically running reruns until the finale. Is that a common thing, or that because the last date we explored, I think, was in late February, early March, and then I assume it's just been reruns up until this these two in May. Is that like normal? Is that normal TV stuff, or
that is not normal TV style? No, especially because April is usually sweeps month. If I remember correct, or is it February May sweeps? I check my sweep schedule. But yeah, that is unusual. Can we confirm that episode 20 was in March? That is a long time off.
It was hang on, I can look it up in 8 seconds.
Okay.
Episode 20 premiered on February 23rd, 1984. So it goes from February 23rd until May 3rd.
Wow. That's interesting because I know usually the typical season is 24 episodes, and this is 22 episodes. And I wonder if, they were still sort of teetering on the brink of whether the show was going to come back and if that was part of it. And maybe April was used for something else to replace it. So I think it's entirely possible that maybe April was being used to test out something else to possibly replace Cheers. There could have been special events going on in April at that point. It could have been primary debates because it's 84.
That's true. Yeah, I couldn't find anything
all
conclusive
going on. Yeah,
but
that is not typical.
Was the Boston Marathon televised at that time? At that point in time, because that's
but always in the morning on Patriots Day.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how long
would not have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not typical.
Yeah, that struck me as kind of weird, but the 84 thing makes a lot of sense too, thinking about the presidential race too.
Was that?
I'll call Jim Burrows and double check.
Thank you.
That's the devil's second term.
Yes. Oh no. Yes.
About to begin the second term in November.
Aha. Who did he run against? Mondale? Was that the Mondale? Or that's
Mondale
Dukakis?
Ferraro ticket. No, Dukakis was against Bush in '88.
Okay.
They were both epic beatdowns, but yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Oof. They were both brutal.
Yeah, my family still talks about Dukakis from time to time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
In good terms or bad terms?
Just kind
or
of
sad
like
terms.
Sad terms.
Yeah.
Always
like
sad.
that kind of like talking about Michael Spinks against Tyson. Where you're like, boy, I really thought that was going to be a match. That was
Sad
rough.
times.
Poor Michael.
Still out there.
One of my first jobs was doing children's theater at the Children's Museum in Boston. Loved that job. And we also taught programming throughout the museum. And one of the exhibits was a Japanese room. And in one of the rooms was called a daruma, which is a wishing doll.
Ooh.
And it was from the president of Japan, or the mayor of Kyoto. And he said, because Kyoto and Boston are sister cities, and they sent Michael Dukakis a doll. So you fill in, when you make the wish, you write it on the back of the doll, and you fill in one of the eyes. And when it comes true, you fill in the other eye. And so it was wishing him good luck in his quest for the presidency. And that eye is still blank. And I looked at that every day going, oh, what a bummer.
Damn.
Poor Duke.
I did not know that
about
about
on display forever.
I did not know that about Boston and Kyoto. That's really cool. Now I have even more incentive to visit Japan.
Yes. And that is also one of the coolest exhibits you can go to is the because it's an authentic Japanese house that was taken down piece by piece and reassembled in the Children's Museum in Boston. So it's an actual house people lived in. A very cool spot.
Cool. That is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did I not know about this? Oh my! Can I go
cool.
as an adult?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool.
I can rent you an 11-year-old if you need cover.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've actually offered out my 8-year-old to people who love Lego and are not allowed to go to the Lego Discovery Center without a child in Somerville. He's available. He said jokingly on the internet. Ugh, and this is how I won't get to host Jeopardy.
Well, you had a good run.
So close. So close. You were so close.
When are people going to learn? And I say this with the irony of like being on a sort of podcast right now. When are people going to acknowledge and understand that the upside of the podcast is nothing compared to the downside of the podcast? Has anything hurt more careers than podcasts?
It's a narrow lane you got to thread.
Whew. I mean, I'm glad my career is over. I don't have to worry about it anymore. This is just something I'm doing for fun. But man, if I still had hope,
I think that is here. One of the small miracles every week is seeing Tookie's face pop up because, watching somebody in their ascendancy still take their chances every week with this. Right? As someone who peaked probably right around the time that Cheers was finally off the air. It's thrilling. It's thrilling to watch you just navigate this week by week.
I'm actually passionate about this project. I actually care, guys. I care.
But that's why we respect you so much. You care enough to get out on this tightrope every week, not a net in sight. Hugely impressive.
It's only a matter of time till I start impersonating Disney cat accents. Right.
Uh-oh.
No, I won't do it. Of course. I'm kidding, obviously.
I understand. All right, we got 2 cold opens for you to break down this week, Tookie.
Okay. So how do we want to do this? Do we break it down week by week or just like
I was
all
thinking
in one lump?
Both of these. I think maybe just do them both at once because the second one is really not connected to anything.
No.
The second one is really a standalone cold open. So yeah, I think we can just kind of do that on its own here.
Okay. And I will preface this with saying, watching these cold opens, and reflecting on them afterwards, a bit of a heartbreaker because it feels kind of like a Coach Swan song, these 2 episodes.
Yeah, we're getting another season of Coach, or almost a season, but yeah.
Almost, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the cold open of episode 1, Coach is addressing the entire bar about his annual Cheers picnic and is planning to delegate tasks. And he goes, "Well, food. Okay, who's gonna bring food?" Everybody's silent. Okay, well, I'll do it. Who's gonna bring in entertainment? Hmm. Okay, no one seems to respond. I'll put down Ernie Pantuso. I'll do it. And now there's 2 softball teams, and we need captains. Okay, no, I'll put down Ernie Pantuso. Transportation. I got it. Ernie Pantuso. There'll be a committee meeting at my place at 8 p.m. Please, everyone, try to be on time. And then cut to credits. So the
Fabulous
gag is
moment.
just that nobody wants to actually, take on these tasks that Coach wants to delegate to make his picnic full of activity. And of course, the second cold opening was Coach announces that it's closing time, and a man offers to give Carla a ride. And she says, "Oh, well, I know how this goes." And she just lays out the whole routine from him. First you drop me off at my place, you stand outside of my house, and then you ask, "Hey, can I get a cup of coffee?" And then we hang out, you turn on the radio, and a smooth song starts playing. You give me a kiss right here, right here. And he says, whoa, I'm not that kind of guy. And she says, "Shut up and listen." You give me a kiss right here, and then you nibble on my ear. Which ear? Your choice. And then, she keeps going and going with the routine until they exit. Roll credits.
Roll credits. Good for you. Just saying what you want. This is how the night's going to go.
Yeah.
Good on Carla.
Yeah.
And I will say to any young gentleman, that not a bad game plan. This is not a bad episode to take some notes on.
Psychological
There's a lot
warfare,
of bad advice you get in Cheers. This is not too bad.
Yeah. And I think a good reminder, like when in doubt, like probably safer for you to listen to Carla as opposed to like push against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that. I like that little window. That was like a nice, like, sort of reminder that Cheers can be funny and sad at the same time. Because there was a sadness to that cold open. Like this is not going to be a long-term romantic thing, and that these are 2 people like kind of hoping for like some connection that ultimately probably isn't going to amount to a whole lot, but at the same time, like they're going to take advantage of it. It felt, I don't know, I was like, oh, this is sort of like emblematic Cheers, like funny, sad, and ultimately kind of like redemptive of humankind.
Yeah, truth. And that first cold open leads us into the B story, which is Coach trying to organize the annual Cheers picnic. Nobody getting involved. Nobody wants to do anything. People are filling out fake names: Ziggy Stardust, the Mad Hatter, and what was the third one?
Clark Kent.
Clark Kent. Thank you. And Coach is saying, "Hey, I got an infield." Really delightful stuff. And then he realizes no one wants to do it. He announces that it's canceled because no one wants to come. Everyone feels bad. They all sign up. He goes over to Carl and says, "Settled man routine works every time." Just a reminder, Coach knows what's going on more than you think he does. A lot of great Coach lines this week. Very funny stuff, as usual. I know we're less than a year away from losing Nick Colasanto, but he's going out swinging, and it's very, very, very nice. He is not going gentle into that good night. So that is the B story. The A story is Sam and Diane. Sam comes into the bar. He is dressed in 80s Lothario style, burgundy suede coat, just looking the bomb. He's saying, "Oh, I got a funny story for you. I was on my way to Boston Magazine to do an interview with the 20 most eligible bachelors in Boston, and I saw a dog, and he was walking on his hind legs. It was crazy." So it was funny. Diane gets very mad about this. He lies to her and says that during the interview, he said, "I might be a bachelor, but I've already found the girl in my dreams. And it's Diane Chambers. You can call her and ask her." She says, "I don't need to call." He says, "Oh, okay, good." And then everyone but Diane realizes that's a big lie, and she's just going to buy some time. And suddenly it gets very real, from a very funny opening to him saying, no, there was a time where she wouldn't have called, but now she will. And, trust each other. And he admits that sometimes he does things just because he knows they're going to make her mad.
Hmm.
And it's a real window into their relationship. That's like, it's going to make her mad. And she makes me feel bad sometimes. And I can't make her feel bad, but I can make her feel mad. I can't put her down the way that she puts me down, but I can get a response from her that is at least emotionally equivalent to how small and tiny and worthless she makes me feel when she insults me the way that she does. And it's this moment that turns on a dime, and you go, "Oh my God!" And then, yeah, Carla introduces a way for them to get back together by referencing Bert and Sally and Lonnie, which is such a nice 80s moment. And that is my 80s moment of the week, by the way. Just reminiscing about Bert and Sally and Lonnie, and even harkening back to Dinah, which is the 70s moment of the week. Really nice. Yes, Toki.
Okay.
Dinah Shore.
Trevor and I looked that up. So it was Dinah Shore, who was like the OG cougar, right, of the day.
Yep.
Okay.
Dinah
a sentence
could get
never
anyone
spoken
Dinah wanted.
before.
Oh my God! Yeah, we need to preserve that somewhere. Dinah Shore was the OG cougar. Absolutely, you crushed that.
Okay.
That is
no,
exactly
I'm just
who
like
Dinah
this
was.
is. I'm asking
that's
in all
exactly
sincerity.
who Dinah was.
Okay.
Yes. Dinah was the OG cougar.
Okay. Noted.
And I have to say, I mean, ultimate cougar, because when she got Burt Reynolds could have been with anyone on planet Earth, and he was with Dinah Shore. Good on Dinah. Good on Bert. I bet he learned some things. Moving on. Okay. So yeah, that was a really fun exchange between all of them. And then Carla suggests having a portrait painted of Diane to get her back. Cliff, who has some interesting moments this week, Cliff is going to suggest hiring an artist because he saw that this guy, Philip Semenko, played brilliantly by Christopher Lloyd. He saw a check for $28,536 by holding it up to a 300-watt light bulb, which does not exist. 300 watts that's like the spotlights they use for movie openings. But be that as it may, he still knows that this is a very successful artist. Decides, oh yeah, do you want me to call her? Well, hang on, and it looks like Sam and Diane are going to be okay. Diane said I was going to call, but I'm proud of myself for not calling. I want us to have total honesty. Sam admits that he lied about that, and furthermore admits that he's glad he didn't do it, and he thinks it would have made him look whipped, and he likes having these women look after him. And as he's finishing this thought, Diane grabs a telephone cord, wraps it around his throat, brings him down to the ground in a way that, I mean, made Cheers look like the Octagon. It was really something, with no ref to pull her off. It was really freaky, which is another potentially 80s moment of the week, which is just, boy, like that's a move that could just get done and be sort of a like playful boyfriend-girlfriend thing. And obviously this delves into something deeper as it goes on, but just the fact that it happened is, I don't think even in the 90s you could have pulled off that move anymore. Not on an episode of TV. So then Christopher Lloyd plays Philip Semenko, comes into the bar. It has a fabulous exchange. And you really needed someone with the talent and weight of Christopher Lloyd, who, even though he hasn't been Back to the Future yet, he was Reverend Jim for years on Taxi. He was somebody people recognized. He was someone who could come in to guest star in a sitcom with some gravitas, and everyone. He was someone who could be the equal of Ted Danson and Shelley Long and pull all of that off, and he did it really beautifully. He thinks he's coming in to sell some artwork to an art patron who is actually Sam, and wants him to paint a quick picture off of Polaroids of his girlfriend for the next day. Christopher Lloyd as Philip Semenko delivers just some of the most brutal lines ever uttered on sitcom or off. The line that haunted me and still does all week: "You are all stuff to fill graves." Wow. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine someone I dislike enough to say that to, and he just says it to the bar, which brings in another fabulous moment from Coach. Don't forget to tell your friends about Cheers.
That was my joke of the
Just
week.
fabulous. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's gonna be Toki's joke of the week.
That's
Don't
literally
forget
my
to tell your friends about Cheers.
yeah.
Oh, I roared at that.
Because whether or not the writers of that line realize it, they were so ahead of their time because it's so akin to, hey, like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. It was social media before social
Yeah,
media. Don't forget to give me 5 stars.
right.
Woo.
Yeah,
So fabulous.
it really is amazing watching Christopher Lloyd do the opposite of chewing scenery. Like he's just like he's just immobile and placid, and everything is happening inside of him, and it's like a little bit terrifying to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a slightly scary dude, and you feel it. And Diane comes in, and he's fixated by her sadness and her desperation and wants to paint her. And big fight. And ultimately, Diane loves him as an artist so much and wants to be painted so much. They do that in secret. Sam does not know about that. That is the end of episode 1. Come back next week in episode 2. The painting is happening. Diane is just taken aback by how beautiful it is. It is not done yet. He feels yet again that he has lost his brilliance. He suggests they have sex. She is shocked. She is, yeah, which leads to one of the weirder exchanges too. I make love to everything I paint. Your most famous painting is of the Harvard Yale football team. Yes, I spent 3 months in jail. Weird line.
Trevor and I had a lot of questions.
Yes. Let's delve into the questions right now.
We had a lot of questions about that.
Him just like attempting to sexually assault these football players? Is it just that homosexuality was still technically illegal?
It still technically is. Anti-sodomy laws are still on the books in Massachusetts.
Good Lord.
I know, but at the same time, yeah, but a judge sometime before this episode aired, I think in the 70s, determined, I mean, rightfully, that, you can't criminalize actions between 2 consenting adults. But they're not officially off the books. So we looked into these things because we had some questions. Trevor, especially about I still get Christmas cards, which
right?
What?
Which made you feel a little bit sad for those football players who just couldn't be themselves. Yeah,
a little bit.
Right? Yeah,
I still get Christmas cards.
A little bit.
It's a great line. Yeah, there are multiple moments that make you think it's going to be one way and then end another way. That line. My joke of the week this week was Cliff accusing Philip Semenko without him being there of being homosexual. And then saying, oh, trust me, all these artists are. I got a coffee table book, nude male figure statuaries. And you just Cliff basically admitting, yeah, I've got a coffee table book filled with the art of naked men.
Yeah.
Which made me stop and wonder. I loved it. The audience didn't respond very well to it. I don't know that they got that it was a joke at Cliff's expense as opposed to Philip Semenko's expense. And that Cliff is basically saying, it is basically a Republican congressman right now saying, oh, these gays are terrible. And I've done the research into how terrible it is. I've watched films about how terrible all of this is. I've gone to the bars and met them. Like, it really is a joke at Cliff's expense. I don't know that everyone gets it. But I thought that was a great joke.
You know what I'm also kind of realizing, because we will meet Incel Cliff soon enough, right? This whole time, maybe he was bi-curious and just didn't know how to deal with that.
That is what I wrote down. Yeah, is Cliff secretly bi or gay? Because he freezes around women. There's only one woman that there's ever a mention of him actually being with during the whole series. Like, and he's so like. His relationship to Norm is so important to him, and being around the guys is so important to him. What is Cliff not telling us? Yeah,
I think that I don't know. Maybe we're all reading into it too much, but it's like, is this something that the writers wanted to explore in a character before it was, because they had many episodes that are so accepting of the LGBT community, but it still wasn't the norm. It still wasn't acceptable to an extent to have gay characters.
Mm-hmm.
And, thinking about it's like I think in the 70s and 80s, I think I watched this thing that explained like at one point there were episodes of Starsky and Hutch that took place in like a drag bar or something. And it was a very honest depiction of that time and what it was to be gay and go to certain places at a certain point in history. And then after the Reagan administration, the devil's administration took over, double death to the whole Reagan administration. But that aside, that's what's going to get me canceled. So anyway, so when they, rose to their prominence and such, like they just absolutely ignored until it was too late, essentially, the AIDS crisis and all these things that were going on and things that were affecting the gay community. And once a lot of heavy conservatism took over and evangelical ideology started to seep into politics, and you had a lot of people who were like, we have to suppress these characters, we can't show that, they're decency laws, etc., like whatever kind of excuses they had. So I'm thinking, were the Cheers writers on the precipice of writing a character who could have, like, a potentially pioneering character, right? A monumental character for the time, but they just couldn't. And maybe the character of Cliff was like right there, but they just couldn't for whatever reason. Because now, reading into the character, I'm like, oh, okay, Cliff, I see you, right? But he can't quite fully go there with the character.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were probably limited in what they could actually do and how they could depict the characters. But, the writers have the power, and especially good writers, to put that in there without you noticing it. That's subliminal messaging. In Starsky and Hutch, in lots of shows and movies. I mean, you go back to Tennessee Williams in not Streetcar, although it's in Streetcar a little bit as well, but Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Oh, yeah.
And you go and look at that, where it's like, okay, we can't say it. We can't say this about Brick and Skipper, but it's there.
Yeah.
And before they could really do something that was, out and proud, it's like, all right, we are going to get this message out there in a quieter way. And it made me think about Cliff very differently this week.
Well, another sidebar.
Sidebar.
One of my favorite TV shows as a kid to watch reruns with my grandmother with Bewitched. A lot of media has cropped up about it being an allegory for actually coming out. And of course, I mean, Uncle Arthur was also my favorite.
Paul Lynde.
Paul Lynde is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hysterical how often he was the husband and father and made no attempt to hide any of that. I mean, the jokes they told on Hollywood Squares, he just like, he's saying it and saying, is anyone going to acknowledge what I'm telling you? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of those shows that were very much that.
Yeah.
Very much that. Yep. Dave, we've got our jokes of the week in here. Do you want to get yours in right here?
Sure. I think I'll give my joke of the week to a Christopher Lloyd line, which actually got no laugh at all. He actually had two of my favorite. This one got a laugh when Cliff introduced himself to him as his mailman, and he looked at him and said, "I can die now." I thought it was very funny. But my favorite one, my favorite one, which again got no laugh. Somebody asked him what he's doing in the bar, and he says, "Up till now, fondly reminiscing about my bout with jaundice." And it
dropped like a stone.
But it was so. I was like, "That's the funniest, most horrible thing you can say about hating being in a place." So though both of those were amazing, but the jaundice one, both times took my breath away and seemed to take the breath away of the audience as well.
Yeah, great jokes. So they are there. He sees how sad she is, realizing what their relationship is, her and Sam, and realizing sometimes he hurts me and seems to like it. The melancholy returns. He does one more brushstroke and he is done with his masterpiece. They show the painting, which is still surprising to me. It
Yeah.
really feels like, yeah, it feels like a painting that you should never see and just see everyone's reaction to, but they show the painting. And I'm very curious what you both thought of the painting. I'm not an artist. I liked it. I thought there was something good there. It worked for me. I still feel like maybe as an audience member, it would have been better to not see it at all. But if they're going to show it, I liked what they showed.
Yeah, it was a really interesting choice to linger on it for as long as they did, because it's easy to start thinking critically about the painting itself. And yeah, I think it must have been I wonder if maybe, because I had a similar response. I was like, I like this painting. It's evocative and surprising in a way that it wasn't what I was expecting to see. And I wonder if when they got the prop, they realized that they had something that was artistic, that they had something better than maybe they had expected, and decided to see if they could get away with letting it kind of stand on its own terms. And I actually was really grateful, not to talk about the end of the episode before it's time, but for me, like, having seen it and having had a little bit of a response to that painting made Sam's last line, which is an incredible moment, even deeper, because I was like, I had a response to this painting, and then knowing that Sam, who I've been told like has difficulty responding to art, is having a response to this painting, made that moment more resonant for me.
Yep.
I have a lot of thoughts as a survivor of a semester and a half of art school. Yeah. Okay. If I submitted that piece at the end of a semester for review, I'd get a D, and that's generous. Okay. I have seen some art in museums. Okay. I have a lot of feelings about Picasso that are not good. Never mind just him as a person, his artwork. I could wipe my ass and come up with something prettier than a lot of his work. Don't care for that. So this is a lot of work. This is reflective of a lot of work that I've seen in modern art museums that I've been like, oh my God. And I'm frustrated by it, right? There's a lot of alleged high art out there, so-called high art, that I'm like, no. Kindergarten art. Finger paintings. I have seen finger paintings with more depth and realism and that are more evocative of real emotion.
Took you feeling differently about the painting, I'm feeling.
I did not care for the actual piece itself. I looked at it and I get why people would have an emotional reaction, but I have a hard time, again, as an art school dropout, I have a hard time respecting pieces of work that I look at and think I can do that too.
And I think that's why I still, even though I liked it, I still wish it had been left up to the viewer's imagination, simply because no one's going. I think it would have been better for that painting to have been whatever you wanted it to be, so that you didn't have that thought about theater school or about art school and what you would have done and what you liked and did not like about it. Just be able to key into everyone else's responses to it. We didn't need to see it.
Yeah. So the power in a medium like television or film is that you can make directorial choices that still leave certain things up to the viewer's imagination. Where a lot of people are like, oh, the book was better, because you use your imagination a lot for the book. You can make directorial choices to still leave some ambiguity there for the viewer, for them to insert what it is that they would like to see, or, in certain things. You don't have to bonk people over the head with them. And it's not that I felt like they bonked us over the head, because they only ever showed us one glimpse of the painting. Yeah, but I reacted more. I've had more like visceral, emotional reactions watching the characters react to the art rather than seeing the art for myself, if that makes sense.
I think one thing I was grateful for, and maybe there's a more sort of artistic way to do this, I was really glad to know that it wasn't a photorealistic painting. Because that really helped me understand Sam at the end of the play, or the end of the episode, that he has the capacity for engaging with a piece of maybe more challenging art than we've seen previously. So I guess
they
in
put
that
the
sense,
red herring in there to make you believe he won't, where he gets the
Yeah.
TV guide painting back
right.
that he thinks is good that other people don't realize is good.
I like
because
that
he doesn't
painting more.
really.
I'm a lover of all things kitsch and weird and camp, and I like art that doesn't take itself too seriously. So a tacky
that
velvet
did
painting.
not.
But
just the fact that
that
he doesn't know necessarily great art from cheap art, but when something powerful is in front of him, he has a response to it, which people don't think he's capable of, and maybe he doesn't even think he's capable of until he feels it. So let's delve into this last scene here, because they come back in. There's a little thing with Carla that I feel like is just something to give Carla to do. Everyone's at the picnic. Diane gives Carla a thank you gift. She doesn't want to say thank you. She says, "Oh, go take the day off." She accidentally says thank you, closes her door, tongue in the door, and then leaves. And that's their moment. And then it is all Sam and Diane in a real tour de force, where Diane wants Sam to look at the painting, and then he's so angry about the fact that she went behind his back to do this. She doesn't want him to see the painting like that. They say some terrible things to each other. Diane says more terrible things to him. In fact, as I watched it the second time, I was realizing he doesn't really insult her. He just gets angry about how much she's hurt him. And that scene where he's talking of where she puts him down and says a monkey can't hold a candle to you, something to that effect. And he just starts getting mad about how she treats him, and how saying, "Oh, don't use this fork with this soup and salad." I know, you don't use a fork with soup. You don't use a fork with soup. I just said use a fork with soup. If you don't tell me anything else, don't tell me that you don't use a fork with soup, please. And is yelling. And it's so clear, like, how damaged he has become by the relationship here, and she sees it. And even as she sees it, she still needs to say it in a way that puts him down a little bit more. It's really terrible. And that he acknowledges that. And they're fighting, and they can't quite get out of it. And then I forget. Yeah, she calls him a fat braying ass, and he says, "Speaking of fat braying ass, you're about to get dumped on yours," which I believe is the line that makes her slap him. And they slap each other, and they grab each other's noses and pinch really hard. And then they finally let go, and they have that moment that Dave referenced earlier, where Sam thinks, "Okay, we're back to normal again, and this is, our our juices are up, and hey, this is a romantic opportunity." And she's hurt, and she's saying, "No, we're not doing this time." And they have a really powerful breakup moment that, again, I remember differently than how it happened, which is she's getting ready to leave for the moment, and he tells her to just go for good. And when he says that to her, Diane is not ready to break up yet. And I didn't remember that. I really think I always thought of it as Diane leaving Sam. And it's not. Diane is saying, if you tell me to go now, that's really it. She is ready to keep this going in this very weird way. And he tells her to go, and has this really powerful goodbye. I mean, the wow is something that everybody talks about at the end, and we're going to spend time on it. But the moment where she is saying, "If I leave, I'm not coming back," and he stops her and then just says goodbye and says, "Yeah, I know you're not coming back, and that's what I need. I need you to be out of my life. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I'm unhappy. You make me sad. This needs to end." And they had this moment where she leaves, and he starts to go to get her and stops. She comes down the stairs in this beautifully framed moment, and then leaves again. And Sam goes over the painting, and he opens it, and he looks at it, and just delivers this wow that is filled with so many different emotions. Just impressed by the art, I think he's seeing how he made her feel in a way that he didn't fully understand before. And he's also seeing how he feels
Hmm.
reflected in this painting and is realizing where he's at emotionally. And all of that is going on with that moment of wow. And we're all seeing how everybody underestimating how the depth of Sam's emotions and what he needs and what he's really looking for and feeling. And it's really a big moment in that wow. There's a lot going on there. So yeah, I spent a little too much time probably yammering on about that, but your thoughts about the final scene? Yeah,
That slap fight is gonna haunt me for a while.
yeah, yeah. And that
Yeah,
moment of him saying, you know, I didn't hit you. She said you hit me. Well, not hard. And what does that mean? Not as hard as I wanted to.
Ugh.
And just a brutal, brutal moment.
yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a moment where you can really like feel the difference between casting Fred Dryer and
Mm.
Ted Danson.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like there's no way that moment can like it. There's no way that moment can play. Like we've thrown flowers at Ted Danson and Shelley Long for months now, and they deserve them because there's no way that's the best version of that, or the most sort of compelling version of this unspeakable act of violence that Sam is perpetrating on Diane. Like there's no way that should be compelling beyond its sort of like ugliness, and yet there's I hesitate to say this, but there's a depth in it that is that is, I don't want to say redeemable, but it's I don't even want to say understandable, but it's compelling in a way that like it's not as cut and dried as if Fred Dryer is doing it or a lesser actor is doing it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could have nailed it like that.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because I felt things. This is a sitcom. This is an 80s sitcom, and I felt things. Yeah.
Yeah. For an actor to pull that off, to follow up an act that it was viewed differently in 1984, certainly, and we need to understand that somehow playful slapping could happen. But I think even in 84, there was that understanding of you've crossed a line. And for an actor to still be able to cross that line, for the audience to know that line has been crossed, and then somehow say that line and not lose everybody is just some high wire work of the highest order. For him to somehow get the audience back on his side by the end of that scene is really hard to do. Or did he not do that for you?
Well, I was gonna say, Mommy Dearest sort of set the precedent for how we depict silly violence on screen.
But Mommy Dearest, as much as that is campy, there was never a feeling of any of that was okay. I mean, it was presented as this woman is behaving as a monster. She's hitting children who can't defend themselves.
Right. But I think audiences were sort of like, I don't know. Something about that movie makes me think people were desensitized a little bit to seeing.
Yeah. No, you could be right. That's probably 100% right. I think, I don't know that they were desensitized to this fight. I think they could see it in a way that didn't damn them in a way that they would be damned now, or at least he would be damned now.
Right.
It was weird. It was an interesting, it was a shift culturally. And I think we were probably at a very specific moment in time where I don't know that scene could have happened even later in the run of this series. Like that can't happen in 1988 even.
No, imagine you can't see him doing that to Kirstie Alley's character.
God.
No.
No.
And part of that is, and look, I don't mean to bag on Kirstie Alley because she did a lot of what she did very well, and there are things that I love about the later seasons. You couldn't have done this season, or you couldn't have done this episode later on. The show didn't have this depth later on, and
No.
I don't think Kirstie Alley either. Maybe I'm selling her as an actor short, or maybe it was just the writing that was different. That character, at the very least, could not have pulled off a scene like this. They never delved into this place of emotion again. And
So
maybe I'll
basically,
be surprised at some point in the next few seasons where I'll go, oh, I forgot that happened. But there's nothing that is striking me the way that this scene strikes me. Even as I think about the end where, where Diane leaves the bar for good, and it's a lovely scene, but it doesn't hit like this.
Yeah,
There isn't the emotional levels going on here.
this feels like this should have been it's such a weird shape of a sitcom arc, right? Because it's so deep for these first few years, and then really does kind of flatten out for the last long chunk. And I guess that's the only way you sort of achieve that kind of like longevity. Like you just can't keep sort of plumbing the depths of a single character for that long.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe you do what the only thing I could think of that comes close is The Simpsons, which is sort of like explored aspects to Homer's character as he sort of relates to America.
But there's no repercussions in The Simpsons. I mean, that's
right.
That's one of the reasons they can last for 30 years.
Absolutely.
Don't get me started, because I think I went over this with you guys about how my parents never let me watch The Simpsons, but they let me watch Ren and Stimpy. But at Trevor's house, they were a big Simpsons family, but he's a purist and doesn't go past a certain point in season 9. And so I because I'd never seen earlier episodes really. So we watched up through the Armin Tamzarian episode of season 9. And the later the show went, the more it was like, oh, instead of a critique on America, especially at the time, and Homer being a reflection of a lot of things that are wrong with our society, it's just, oh, Homer falls into a hole again, stuffs his face with donuts again. And I think, oh God, is Kirstie Alley's Rebecca a Homer Simpson of her time? That's a bummer to think about.
It might be true. It might be true.
Oof.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's where and that's the shift in a writing too, where a lot of the core writers who were there for the first few seasons of The Simpsons were no longer there. And then it was fans of the show writing, and it was like, hey, what if Homer were in this situation, rather than an actual plot that makes you think and feel? And maybe that's sort of also what happens to Cheers.
I think that a lot of that's really true, because when I go back and every once in a while I will see a Cheers or a Simpsons from the last 15 years. I mean, I watched it in high school, and that was, how I grew up with it. And I remember so many of those, the Trevor era so clearly. And I will watch a more recent one and I'll laugh again. It's not that I don't think the writing is sharp and funny, but they're jokes. I don't feel like there's the commentary, at least not in the way that I recall it. And maybe I'm just detached from the pop culture that they're referencing in a way that it's just not going to hit as hard with me. But I watch it, and I think that's very true of later seasons of Cheers, where the jokes got better, but there wasn't the depth to it.